Hello and welcome along to the latest edition of the Irish F1 show. As always, in association with our good friends at PFT Travel and Murray Motorsport. And if you use a promo code called Irish Rally Podcast, our sibling podcast, of course, that will get you 10% off a wide variety of products on murraymotorsport.com. And if you talk nicely to MJ and mention the Irish F1 show at PFT Travel, he may indeed give you 10% off as well. We did our conversation before that, so I'm not going to end up with two black guys. Barry Robin and Richie Carney, join me as always, lads. How are you keeping?
All right, Kev. Richie, how are we?
100%.
I was going to call this podcast Jesus Christ, it was some lot of shite. Because that's what it was.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it, was there? It was they built it up as, because the last years if there was incident and accident or whatever, but yeah, no, it wasn't great. Now, let's be honest, it was pretty poor.
Richie, will we be honest and tell our viewers that all three of us, not together mind, may have had little snooze at some stage during the race.
It was a bit of a snooze fest, all right, wasn't it? It wasn't much to watch.
I think we've seen it between us. Is that the best way of putting it? Between us, we've seen the whole race.
Yeah,
I missed
exactly
right.
Yeah, we picked third each, but look, guys, we've been down this road before. We're not big fans of street circuits. Occasionally they've thrown up a little bit of excitement, but this was absolutely dour the other day, and I'm struggling to actually find anything that's even partially exciting to talk about. Unless
the
you guys want to...
the format change was probably the biggest news of the weekend, with them changing to the sprint race being standalone and not having any part to play in the Grand Prix itself. So I don't know what your thoughts were on that. I mean, it was a small but important change, I think, but I don't know. I just get the feeling that they're kind of, messing around at the edges. Really, it's not going to make any difference. The format massively. The ultimate problem is the cars can't race. They're just too big, too heavy. The braking zones are too short. So I think the format is largely irrelevant. Though I could see why they did what they did in moving it around a bit.
I suppose, Richie, to pick up on Barry's point, does the ends justify the means of it? At the end of the day, that's what you have to ask yourself.
I don't know. I think Barry is spot on in what I said, and also I think just from a commercial and money side of things, they're just trying to get bums on seats Friday, Saturday, and Sunday rather than just Saturday and Sunday.
I mean, it seems okay. Right, we've had debates before where it's been on the other format regarding sprint race and stuff, but at least that's kind of had some sort of, bearing on how things might pan out for a race, that there's some sort of importance on it in terms of where you end up on the grid and stuff. But it seemed like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, but I'd like to be on pole if I'm after going to the bother of getting involved in an 18-lap race and winning it, and then finding out I'm still not on pole. That's kind of just not sitting right with me. But Barry, I suppose, have you got an explanation for maybe why they've gone down this route, apart from the bums on seats thing?
I think the idea of it was that they were trying to promote the sprint event as a sprint race, as it was the nature, as it says in the thing, a sprint race, as opposed to kind of a chess match that a Grand Prix can be in terms of strategy and all that. It was just a straightforward go, no pit stops, and see who gets to the finish line first, in the hope that it would encourage overtaking and a bit more racing and activity and whatever else. The unintended consequence of it was that lads were saying, well, I'm not going to get involved in trying to gain another position or two on the grid or in the race, because it's not that well rewarded in terms of points. Yeah, it'll move me up the grid for the race, granted, but the downside, the risk reward ratio, was all wrong. So what's happening was they were getting the chance was that they would get it. They would make 2 or 3 spots up, but if anything went wrong, they could lose 10 positions on the grid for the big race when the points and the money and the trophies are being handed out. So I think that's why they try to make it standalone, so that it didn't have any knock-on effect into the Grand Prix. But by doing that, they've inadvertently made it even less relevant. I didn't see the sprint race, to be honest. I had a good excuse. I watched the start of it from inside my own race car down in Mondello. I was testing, so I was just about to go out on track, and Shane handed me the phone, and I watched the start of it from inside the cockpit, and then a lap or two in, I was like, right, I'm going to more crack do it myself than watching it. So off it went. But I don't think anything wild happened from what I could pick up on. But yeah, they just, I don't know, maybe I thought having the qualifying on a Friday was odd too. Maybe they should swap that around. Maybe they should make sprint qualifying on the Friday and the Grand Prix qualifying on the Saturday. might be a bit more
Mhm.
interesting, because that's when people can watch at the end of the day. Most people are in work and aren't watching on a Friday. It's odd. I don't think they need it, to be honest, in the first place. It's probably the real crux to it.
I'd wonder actually. I'd like to see some sort of information on where the largest catchment area is in terms of viewership across the world. What actual region in the world has the largest amount of viewership? Because it would probably dictate, which races you could and should probably pick up on what you've just said there. By means, like, just say if it is Europe, that if there was such a time of year and such whatever that you could have it in the evening time where it captures the audience as well. That would be pretty nice. Obviously, we're a bit biased here and hoping that it'll be within our time frame. But I mean, it wasn't. I suppose it was in kind of relative to our time frame the other day, but just not feasible to be able to sit down and watch it on a Friday.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I think it's that reality is people. But people haven't got access to watch it on a Friday in many terms, and then even if they do, are they fanatical enough about it to do that and to commit another day to it? I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to achieve. Are they just trying to create more, more eyes, more hours worth of viewing? Because at the end of the day, look, a sprint race is more interested in FP2 or FP3 or whatever, but sometimes too much of a good thing is not ideal either. So, and I think they're kind of running perilously close to that between sprint races and just the number of race weekends. I think it's maybe diluting the whole thing just a step too far.
I think it's like we spoke about it before as well, Barry. Like, it's like Formula One, like, they have a terrible tendency to overcomplicate something that's not really complicated. Like, as regards what you said a little bit earlier, Kevin, like they want to add a bit more excitement. Sprint race, I think it's a good idea if it works, but like, qualify Saturday morning for your position on the grid for your sprint race. That's your start position for Sunday's race. And even if they wanted to mix it up, I know maybe it mightn't be so much feasible in Formula One, but even reverse the top 10 grid or so, just to spice things up that way, like, rather than trying to get more viewership. You probably get every bit as much viewership Saturday and Sunday as like Barry said, Friday. We're all working on a Friday. I didn't see qualifying on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what about, just thinking off the top of my head, what about if they qualified on the Friday and then your qualifying position was qualified for the Grand Prix on Friday, or Saturday morning or whatever, right? So qualifying first and then reverse the grid or some portion of it for the sprint race.
For the sprint race, reverse the top 10 or something
for your sprint race, and you get points for your sprint race based on where you finish, which effectively means the more you overtake, the more points you get, because if you're at the back, and let the race on Sunday still be a result of the qualifying. So let's say Leclerc qualifies pole, for talk's sake, as he did at the weekend. He starts the race on Sunday in pole position, but on Saturday he has to race from the back of the grid, and you get a number of points based on how far up the grid he gets on the Saturday, as is kind of bonus points, is kind of sprint racing points, let's say, for the weekend. I don't know. You'd obviously have to think it out, and I think this is some of the problem. I think you can create something and then you put it to the teams, and then the teams see an angle or they weigh up the risk reward of the whole thing, and then a problem that you never seen coming down the road, because raises its head, and then they're kind of scrambling trying to fix that, and they fix that but only to cause another one somewhere else. So it just feels like that at the moment. It just feels like they're kind of, what's the game where the heads keep popping up and you keep whack-a-mole, yeah, that's it. It just feels like that at the minute, where they're just kind of making it up as they go along a little bit.
Yeah, whack-a-mole is right. And I wonder, Richard, would it be the Destruction Derby if we did reverse the grid? That's the only thing.
But if it didn't matter, if the qualifying was if the grid for the race was locked in from qualifying, I don't think you can have the grid. I think as soon as you make the grid the result of the sprint race, the sprint race just becomes a real exercise in being careful and not messing up your start position for the big race. I think that's what we were seeing. The problem now is they make it standalone. They remove that kind of carrot for those who are slightly further back to work their way forward onto the grid. They remove that, but there isn't enough of a carrot in terms of the amount of points that's on available from the sprint race to really make it interesting or make it worth fighting for. So I think it's just, you have qualifying and you have this like holding pattern during the sprint race where everyone just kind of sits on their hands a little bit and then waits till Sunday to roll around, which really just makes the sprint race very, very boring, even more boring possibly than the Grand Prix could be on a given weekend, which is the exact opposite of what they were trying to achieve.
Like, they're actually using the sprint race really as like a more of a, like, outside the top eight. It's only a test. It's a tired egg exercise. It's,
Yeah.
what like the sprint race on Saturday, they only used it to see how the mediums would work for Sunday, like most teams.
Yeah, because they've no chance. They've some chance in a Grand Prix of your Williamses and whatever, nipping a point or something if something happens. But and in the sprint race, it's almost guaranteed nothing's going to happen. So the chances of someone starting 18th, 19th, 20th on the grid grabbing a couple of points, by the fact that, well, there's less points on offer to start with, the drivers are taking less chance, those ahead of them are taking less chance, and there's it's only 33% of the duration. It's not going to happen. So you kind of have to wonder what is the potential upside for the Williamses and the Alfa Romeos of this world in the sprint race, other than just putting miles on their engines and gearboxes and everything else. So I think if another bit of
like you were saying, that there has to be an incentive to do, to get up the grid in the sprint race. There has to be something, as Barry said, a carrot dangling there that it's worth racing for. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I said. Maybe reverse it, because the guys at the back need to work their way forward to score points, and the guys at the front can hold points if they can keep them lads behind them. And there's nothing better than someone who really doesn't want to be overtaken battling against someone who really wants to pass them. Like, that's your recipe for making a good race at the end of the day. And turn down the bloody DRS when the straight is 2.5 kilometers long.
man.
Who didn't see that coming? Like,
I was just going to bring that up actually, and it is quite interesting in the sense that, just say you're going down, I don't know, the M9 or the M7, for example, and you get to the 2 kilometer mark. You still have that little bit of time before you come off. But it's amazing how quickly the boys get to 2.5 kilometers down the stretch, isn't it? I suppose we'll chat about Perez, and now the cat really is among the pigeons, isn't it? Because there's 6 points I think between himself and Max. Max obviously at still first, and Checo just literally on his tail. Like, so you got to go back then. I think 36 points to Alonso. I think Alonso's on 60. I think it's 60 and what am I making out to be now? Quick maths. 90, was it 93, 87 and 60 or something like that, I think. So look, it looks like a 2-horse race, but we all thought it was going to be maybe one-way traffic for a little while. But is this getting a little bit interesting now, lads? And are you kind of surprised that this is panning out this way in any sense?
Not really. It certainly it's a 2-horse race for the championship. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the team will lean towards Max, but in fairness to Checo, like, he drove flawlessly in the main race on Sunday, and I know Max got screwed a little bit with the safety car, but even at that, like, he opened a 3.5 second gap, and Max couldn't close it, and he deserved his win. It didn't come by real fluke or anything like that. And if Perez really wants to have a serious crack at the title, like, he's going to have to do like a Rosberg did with Hamilton, get in his head, mess with him. Now whether Checo's capable of that or not, I don't know.
I'd say he is somewhere, Barry. I'd say he is.
I think so. I think on the basis of the weekend, you can't argue with anything Richie has said there, because all of that, is pretty much factual. That is what happened. Perez has always been quick at street circuits in general, but Baku in particular. The problem I think you have for trying to hope, which is what we probably are doing, that it's a 2-horse race, is that there's 2 races. At 22, 20, it was 23. It's now 22. Was it? I think in the season this year, Perez can probably match Max on 2 of them, 3 of them. The rest of them, Max is going to be faster than Perez, and I think it'll just wash out over the course of the season that at the end of the day, Max is the superior driver to Perez. They've got the same equipment, so the only chance he really has of making a race of it, championship wise, is bad luck in Max's case. I don't think, I think Baku is a bit of a specialist circuit to Checo, and I don't think it's kind of indicative of what the rest of the season will be. I think as soon as we roll around and get into most of the other tracks, it'll just be business as usual with Max at the front. It's a bit maybe a defeatist kind of attitude, but I think at the end of the day, there's only a handful of tracks that Checo can put it up to Max, and all other things being equal, Max will beat him on the other ones. And that's how it'll wash out. Never mind the kind of team support and expectation and everything else, but we'll see. It happened with Rosberg and Hamilton, as you said. There was outside factors and non-driving battles, let's say, in terms of mind games and whatever else, and it's all that's all fair and love and war, and it's all part of it. So maybe Checo can find something on Max. Max is used to being the underdog. There's signs that he's not as comfortable being the expected winner as he was being the underdog. So he's there is little signs of surface cracks there. We've seen it with Russell at the weekend and stuff. So maybe there's a little chink in the armor there that Perez can exploit, but you'd want a pretty big crowbar, I'd say.
Well, Richie, I suppose the only thing Perez might have in his favour in the short term is that some of those races that Barry has mentioned are kind of coming up pretty soon. Barry's favourite race is next weekend, incidentally, in Miami. I'd say he can't wait for it.
Jesus. Another one I'll have to...
I think that was the funniest podcast.
They have water this year, haven't they? They've water under the boats this year. That's a start.
Is it real water this year, is it?
Apparently, yeah, the real stuff, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There's no stickers anymore.
No. They might have real celebrities there this time, is that?
I wouldn't know. I don't know the real ones from the fake ones.
Yeah, they're not all kind of fake, no.
Yeah, well, this is it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, you're thinking, I suppose, after the weekend, the way that panned out, do you know what, lads, we've Miami to look forward to. Said nobody ever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just one of those things. The other thing I should have brought up before we kind of park Baku was the incident, I suppose, with Russell and Verstappen, and maybe how Verstappen reacted to that. Have you any kind of thoughts on maybe that sort of behaviour?
Fucking crybaby. George, nothing wrong, like. But that's all Max and just pure racing. That's pure start of the race stuff. Like, what did he expect? Who was more to lose in this? Like, in a much faster car anyway, just back over it and you're going to get him in the next big long straight anyway. If you're that worried about your championship. And then, like, for him to call him what he did when George was walking away from a match, Jesus Christ, on live television, what a dope.
But he waited for him to walk away too, like, that's the thing I didn't like.
Do you reckon, though, that it is, like I mentioned a second ago, that it's, Max is now taking on the other, has the other cap on now where he can't maybe drive in his natural manner, which is, just launch it up the inside and, like everyone else, make their own arrangements, which is what he's had to do pretty much his whole F1 career, with the exception of last year to a certain extent. But, that's what he's had to do to this is his natural kind of way of being. And now he's experiencing it from the other side, where he has to kind of second guess what people are going to do to him, which is a mild version of what he did to them previously at the end of the day. So what I find interesting about it is not necessarily the kind of the whinging about it on the radio or the words afterwards. I can almost understand that taken on its own without any context. But has he got no self-awareness of his own kind of image, let's say, or his own previous to go, Jesus, I can't, of all people, I can't say that. Like, I'm coming up the inside, 4 wheels locked towards, which I don't have an issue with. Yeah, but this is the bit I can't understand how he can, as I said, I understand that, like, you should have given me more space or whatever. That's his own opinion. But even if he thinks that, something should stop him saying it for knowing how it's going to be perceived and how it looks to have the most aggressive driver on the grid, which he is, and which is fine, to becoming the guy that's given out about something that's not even in the ballpark of what he does himself. I think it's a very interesting insight to how he's lacking that self-awareness to realize, Jesus, of all people, I can't say this. Like,
exactly.
I think that's the most telling part of the whole lot of it, you know.
There's definitely
the handbags afterwards. Sure, look, that's. I mean, there's nothing to see here. Like,
yeah,
I thought it was deadly. George walked away mid conversation. I thought that was brilliant.
Turned his back on it. Yeah. But it was a non-event. I mean, George did absolutely nothing wrong. It was a little touch into the side of the Verstappen's car or whatever. But yeah, I mean, no, complete non-event, blown out of proportion by Max and by extension then the general media. I think just trying to latch onto something interesting over a pretty dismal weekend from a point of view of entertainment and racing.
Hey, listen, right, not that we're encouraging this, but is there ever going to be two drivers actually throwing a box at each other ever again, or are they just going to bitch about everything? Is it just the way we are? I mean, like, if you take that relative to the 80s or 70s, maybe even a portion of the 90s, there might have been a box thrown there in relative terms, but now it's like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And you know what? Wait till he walks away and then call him a dickhead. Which...
Kevin, the only box you'll see thrown in Formula 1 nowadays is a cardboard box.
But, like, I mean, if you look at it even now, I think when he had an incident with Ocon a couple of years ago, Ocon was obviously wrong in that situation, right? But still he was pushing him around the place. So who's going to be the first one to actually stand up to him though properly? Because nobody seems to stand up to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. You know, in general terms, not just in F1, but I don't know whether it'll be like, I'm trying to think of a circumstance where, like, at the weekend the race was done, there was a half an hour or 40 minutes of somewhat cooling off because, you know, it was the first lap, wasn't it, where the two of them came together, and this was whatever 40 minutes later at the end of the sprint race. It's a lot of cooling off periods there. I mean, it would have to be something that had happened on track, and the two guys jumped out of the car before any of their handlers could get at them, or the calmness of time, you know, wafts over them. Like, so, I mean, the closest we probably had was involving Russell again and Bottas a couple of years ago in Imola when they came together. I mean, that was, I think, what did they call him? Princess. I heard Max Verstappen called him Princess George on Dutch TV. So I think Princess George threw a slap towards Bottas that day. But
brave man.
Well, considering he's wearing a helmet, like, you know. You can hear his fingers breaking.
Fucking hell, Jesus! I wouldn't be putting a hand on Bottas on you. I don't think you come out there right end of it, especially if you're George Russell. It's just interesting though, because last week I actually listened to two podcasts last week that had Gunther Steiner on them. One was with Jake Humphrey, the High Performance podcast, which I thought about before on this podcast. I think it's just incredible for anyone, I suppose, who wants an insight into how any sports person operates, or indeed a business person. But Gunther was on, obviously very forthright and stuff, a little bit more reserved than you might come to expect. A few interesting nuggets in it, but check it out. But anyway, in the second podcast, he mentioned if he was given a choice of any two drivers on the grid at the minute, his answer was actually Max and George Russell. Now, I just wonder after the weekend, has that changed? Sure, look, no matter who's in there beside him, there's going to be conflict, just the way he is. Max, that is, of course. You know, George is probably a little bit more... You might have a little bit to Ramon or whatever, but Max is
circumstance though. You know, like it's all well. Everybody can be friendly when they're like, we heard Alonso and Stroll. You know, like, tell Fernando I won't try and overtake him. Oh, thanks, Lance. Try this brake pressure, Lance. Oh, thanks, Alonso. Like, right, as soon as there's a win, it'll be get that fucking prick out of my way, and you know, you can't read too much into all this stuff at all. It's all circumstance.
Even the commentator said it. It took, where's the real Fernando gone? Like, you know.
Yeah. Well, the real Fernando was able to say, do you reckon if Fernando was behind Lance, he'd have said to him, here, try 56, 44 on the brakes? He said, try 44, 56 and watch them go off backwards into the gravel, like pulling the handbrake.
Tell him to wind them on to the rear. It's working brilliant for me.
Yeah. I see him disappearing in a cloud of handbrake smoke down into the first corner. So, like, it's just, you know. Come on, we've been around long enough. We know what's going on. You know, Alonso's ahead. He's going to be very charitable, let's say, and help his teammate out. So long as he gets, he might be able to catch up with me a little bit, but If he catches up too much, the radio might stop working just as quick.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Rich, you'll know the person I want to go here, actually. You may or may not, because I don't know if you went to the same school, but our old geography teacher, who's passed away since, was a great fucking character, right? And he always said, charity starts at home, and a friend in need is a pest. So, like, I think it actually fits that conversation pretty neatly there, what you're talking about, that you look after your own first and then
deal with the rest then. Yeah, but it won't be that, it's like, like they'll all help out when it suits them. It would be like Verstappen and Checo's a legend, whatever, in Abu Dhabi. When he held up Hamilton that time, and then it's Monaco. Fast forward 6 months later in Monaco, and Checo's a bollocks, and I'm gonna get him back in 6 months' time when he wants P2 in the championship. So,
yeah, at least he doesn't hold the grudge, though.
What?
At least he doesn't hold the grudge. 6 months later.
I think he does. To be fair, even Horner said that. Yeah.
Jesus. But like, isn't it amazing? It's an interesting aspect of his character that he holds on to that and doesn't forget. Like, and that's still raging hot there. You know. And I think the logical comparison, even though he's not obviously as competitive now as what he was, is Hamilton and Verstappen now. If you look at if you take a little step back and look at how maybe they will both behave after a race, and how Lewis over time. I don't remember Lewis being like this at the start. I think it did come with time where he learned to just park the emotion from what was going on, and probably avoided a lot of confrontational situations as a result. Wasn't like that at the start, but it did happen over time. But
it also, just to interrupt you, Kev, it's very easy to be relaxed and circumspect and wait a lap to get your overtake in when you've got a car that's comfortably faster than everyone else too.
Of course.
That's a part that has a part to play in it also.
Yeah, for sure, lad, for sure. I suppose to finish it, like, I'm not quite sure as the years go on if Max will ever develop that. I'd have my doubts.
Yeah, I don't like, from the sounds, but I don't think he'll be there anyway. I think he's kind of making noise.
He said that.
He's happy enough.
And you boys predicted that last year, in fairness to you. He said that he doesn't seem the type of guy that, will be there in maybe 5-6 years' time, or maybe 5-6 years' time at maybe maximum, like, or in between he might go off and do something else. And he has said it publicly. Spot on,
Yeah, well, you see, and people say, but he's got a massive winning desire to win, which you can see on track. But winning a battle on track, / winning the race, and winning a championship are two different things. One is the cumulative effect of the latter is a cumulative effect of the former, let's say, but the desire to, you can go out and say, I want to beat him just because I want to beat him, but not put a huge weight behind championships at the same time, because I think this is probably true of most people that follow F1 to a reasonably high level of knowledge, and I think it's absolutely true of the drivers. They know that the car is such an important factor, and the team is such an important factor, that the drivers' championship is, somewhat tainted by it, and they don't consider it to be as definitive a record of who's the best, or definitive indication of who's the best. And I think the drivers will probably accept that amongst themselves to a large extent. So, Verstappen is probably like, yeah, I'll go out and I'll race you wheel to wheel. And, if I happen to have a championship winning car and you happen to have a championship winning car, well, then one of us will win the championship. But if we both of us are in 7th place, I'll fight you just as hard. And we'll race and drive as just as hard as each other. But the championship won't come out of it ultimately because we're in, the wrong car. And we've seen that with Alonso. Alonso is showing just how important the car is. He's the elder statesman on the grid. He's, by all rights and all measures, he shouldn't be able to perform the level he is. And give him a car, and there he is. And he would have had 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 championships more if he was in a different car at a different time. So I think Verstappen loves the racing, but, 8 championships, I think, winning a number of championships is not as strong a desire as winning the next corner for him, which is probably why you see him kind of saying, I like to do other stuff. endurance racing and whatnot. So, which I think is great, to be honest. I think it's a pity more of the drivers don't have that kind of open view of motorsport and aren't as closed off to any other options. Because I think the sport in general will do well from it. You imagine if Verstappen decides in 3 years' time, I've had enough of this. I'm going to have to do whatever, IndyCar, NASCAR, WEC, ELMS, whatever, touring cars. I don't know. Just want to dip his hand into loads of different things. I think that'd be fantastic for motor racing. Maybe not F1, but for motor racing, that'd be fantastic.
Kind of a left winger coming in here now before we finish up, right? But I've often wondered this, and it's probably a question that's more suited for the Irish Rally podcast. But you've kind of forced the issue here, Barry, by kind of talking about the multidiscipline aspect of motorsport and such, right? But you look at WRC at the minute and what there's 3 teams. You've got 10 in F1. For what reason do you think there's always been such an abundance of teams in F1? There's always been at least 10 teams in F1 in any given season. I want the correction on that, I'm nearly certain. But you go back through the history of WRC, and at one time I think there was 5 or 6 manufacturers, and now there's 3. What is it that maybe constructors think a little bit different about in that sense, do you think?
Richie, you know more the rallying than I do.
Well, I think you have an opinion on it, or a bit of knowledge, because you're both in the know. It's not even just that in general, I suppose. It's not the rally in general. It's why. What are the subtle little differences? Like, is it as simple as just saying it's chalk and cheese, Richie?
Well, no. What I would think, the big difference between WRC and Formula One is Formula One has 20 times more money involved in it than WRC, which is why, the prize money in Formula One outweighs WRC tenfold. So, that's why they don't want to let it over 10, because you without winning an 11 team, the prize money gets less. So that's why they try to keep it at 10 teams, and I think that's why manufacturers are not heavily getting involved in WRC. It's not really going to pay them. It's not in it for them, I don't think.
And the level of exposure isn't either. There's another comment going around recently that WRC should have done the Right to Survive thing and could still do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from what I would think as well is, and I'm absolutely not an authority on World Rally Championship, but the F1 has always had a strong under kind of a foundation of privateer teams that are not manufacturers. And that's always kind of held the line, I suppose, on terms of numbers and grid numbers, whereas WRC is more reliant, I think, on the manufacturer. You don't see
counter. Yeah, like you have Toyota and Hyundai that are factory teams or whatever, but then Malcolm Wilson actually had to go, and I don't know how would you phrase it. It's M Sport. It's not Ford anymore.
I suppose it's Sauber / Alfa Romeo. It's if someone else gives him more money, he'll put a different badge on the car, a different body on the car, kind of thing. So, but yeah, I don't know whether it's always had that same level of independent. Not privateer. A privateer is someone like me or Richie that decide that comes into a ball of money and decides to buy WRC and go compete. But there's no independent. There's no. Is there a Williams of F1 of rallying? Is there a Sauber? Was there a Jordan? Was there a insert numerous names here? I don't think there is. I don't think because they'd have to, at the end of the day, they'd just be going and buying another car, off one of the manufacturers and making an entry that way. So there's probably an historical thing. There's definitely the money thing, like Richie says. There's the marketing of it. F1 is a monstrous sport. In worldwide terms, never mind within motor racing itself, which is obviously the number one. And the likes of your Red Bull and stuff, they make money out of it. They get free. They take in more revenue than they spend, and they get all the upside of the free advertising and marketing. So, it's something that rallying could learn from. Maybe it's also rallying is probably a little bit. It's not as made for TV as F1 is and stuff. It's a longer event, 2 or 3 days. The highlight packages, maybe you could say, is made for TV, but you're not going to watch it live. in the same way that you can sit down and the whole thing can unravel on a 2 hours on a Sunday after your lunch. So probably a whole litany of reasons, truth be told.
More compact, I suppose. Like the WRC light thing is cool, but it's a whole day required to watch it, whereas like F1 is the couple of hours and you're out the gap with it, I suppose. And very last thing then, just on a coverage point of view. So pro rata to F1, right? You guys and what you do in Ireland, if you go, we'll say maybe League of Ireland to Premier League in soccer. I know that's that's double Dutch to you, Baz, but it's probably the same comparison. We've kind of touched on this before. I'd have a huge deal of, I suppose, sympathy and empathy for you guys when you see what a product this is in a global sense, F1, but then what you guys go and do and the money you spend. And it's something obviously that I'm sure you've thought about for years upon years, and alternative methods have been used in terms of live streams and everything. The same as rallying and stuff. But what actually can be done? Is there any way that, you know, I'm not going to say piggyback off F1, right? But to say, look, we're actually doing this, albeit not at the same level as the guys. But is there any way we could get a little bit more fair play and a bit more recognition from a media point of view than what we're currently getting? Because what we're doing is as important and as topical as hockey, as cricket. I won't even say golf, rugby, soccer, but hockey and cricket are in the news quite a bit. I just don't have an understanding of that, and I'd love to see it improve. And I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts, and it'll probably result in me losing my race license if I let them all out. But I mean, yeah, it's the truth be told, it's shocking, you know, and the underlying problem I feel is just a massively defeatist attitude towards it, you know, in terms of Asher, you know, probably won't work anyway. Even if we tried, it probably won't work. The only thing I can relate to and compare it to is, and I might have said it before, that I was lucky enough to race in Barbados a good few years ago. There's something like 200,000 or 300,000 people on the island, and there was 20-something thousand at the track. They've no facilities like we have. They've nothing else, but they made it work with less than what we have at their disposal, because they believed they could do it, and they made a big deal out of it first, so it became a big deal. I think there's a lot of people sitting around waiting for RTE to just land with a load of cameras and, you know, everything to just happen. And what we need to do is we need to be leading from the front instead of, you know, sitting on our hands and wondering why it's not happening. But that's not my job. That's not Richie's job. We're, you know I heard someone say before, like, oh well, you know, you lads are, you know, you get to race and you say this. Well, we don't get to race. You know, we race because we sacrifice immeasurable amount of things and time and money and effort and everything else to go along with it. We're doing our bit. You know, we're doing what we need to do. We can't be the promoters, the drivers, you know, the social media influence. We're doing our bit. We need other people to do their bit, and I think there just isn't a desire from the others to do what they need to do. And everybody just kind of go and shrug their shoulders and, you know, sure, people probably wouldn't come anyway, even if we did it. And that's been proved wrong countless times. Because whenever they do actually accidentally or on purpose put a bit of effort in, the results are immediately shown. But it's just from my point of view, I'm on my soapbox now, but from my point of view, it's definitely just an overwhelming acceptance of mediocrity. You know, let's do a live stream. You know, yeah, it's grand. You know, is it the best live stream it can possibly be? Is there anyone asking themselves that question? Is it the best? You know, are we making enough of a show of it? Are the people that we get down to Mondello, are we absolutely, you know, mesmerizing them and making sure that this is the best that we can do with the resources available, or are we just doing enough? And I just think we're always just doing, I won't even say enough, just the minimum, you know. And if you take that attitude into actually preparing and driving a race car, it won't work. You won't get any results, and there's no reason to think any different from all the other aspects of the sport that are brought in, from from officialdom right the way up to promotion. I think if the drivers put the same level of attention to detail and desire to win into it, it'd be a battle to see who's last every weekend rather than who's first. And it's unfortunate, and I'm getting to the point personally where I've been waiting for it all my whole life to improve, and it ain't happening. And you kind of just go, well, maybe it's time to look elsewhere and do something else, because it's not going to happen here. And you look further afield then as a result, which is what so many have done before now, and is part of the problem then as well, unfortunately.
Fair play, Barry.
That's it.
All right.
License gone.
I know. Look, I mean, you're speaking your mind. It's an opinion. And Richie, I'll bring you in on it.
I'm not saying nothing. I have to go to Bishop's Court next weekend. That fails. Don't let me rest. No, just take Barry's point there. I agree with everything he said. 100%.
That's enough, Richie. You agree with me, you're goosed. Guilty by association.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't
Joking
know.
aside, that is a certain element of it. I know, and Richie is being. I know he is, because he'll put his hand up, and he has been counted before. But there is a fear out there that if you say anything, controversial, that the next time there's a 50-50 decision, you'll be on the wrong side of it. But you know what? Screw him. Don't really care anymore.
Yeah, at that long, I suppose my tuppence worth, seeing it from a media point of view, is I would use Camogie as the example, right? If you look at where Camogie is now, league finals showing on RTE, the All Ireland finals, to be fair, are probably always on TG Car, but there is a lot more of it on mainstream channels. And having sat, I suppose, in a radio station or a few of them and a few newsrooms and different things like that, literally baiting it off your face, right? So that you can't ignore it. And I think until there's such a time, I suppose, until that everyone that's on a mailing list should be on it and should be getting the information, then the like of any of us can't say X, Y, or Z about maybe an RTE or an off the ball or anything like that, because we haven't got our side of it covered. Do you know what I mean? Like the poor side of it. So I mean, it's the very same for rallying. It's the God's honest truth, like, and it is hugely frustrating. And I'd love to see something a little bit different. When you see the money, you see the interest, and above all, guys, like, I mean, without sponsorship, you don't get out, and without sponsorship, my podcast don't get out. And if you could say to someone, well, now it's gone mainstream, there's more of an awareness of it. So you say to someone, right, I'm looking for a few bob for the year ahead. They wouldn't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. They wouldn't know what the sport is. They wouldn't have any idea of the figures involved in terms of people going to it. The money it generates for economies and different things like that. But all of a sudden, if you have that little slice of the pie, whereas in mainstream viewing, at least there's a familiarity of it. Oh yeah, I actually did see something about that before. And that's all you need, is someone to say, I've seen a little bit about that before somewhere. That it's not new when you go to say it to them, and it's not like you're a fucking UFO. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And on the racing side of things, now is a massive opportunity with the Drive to Survive uplift. Because if you can turn around to someone and go, they're F1 cars, and there's F3 cars in Mondello, in which is 20 minutes away from you, or 40 minutes away from the capital of the city, of the country, where there's, heading on 2 million people living, or whatever it is now, or catchment area around Mondello Park. And there's a massive Drive to Survive and upswing in motorsport and F1 interest. And there's cars that are not far off in the ladder of F1, as I said, like F3s, there's World Series cars, there's all these sort of cars that are there, never mind our own homegrown stuff, which, in many ways is the better product from a racing point of view. It's such an opportunity that's I just get the underwhelmed. It's just being wasted, it's just not being grabbed and dealt with. And I'm sure in the rallying world, the same can happen. It's an even bigger sport in terms of numbers and whatever else. But I think what happens is we just become too used to, paddling our own canoe. And you said about sponsorship and stuff like that. The reality is the vast majority of drivers are racing without sponsorship. They're self-funded in the high percentages of what they bring to the table that is coming from their own pockets, their own, you know, efforts, and they don't expect it, so they don't go looking for it, and that's a bit of a vicious circle then as a result. So it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. And I'd say rallying is probably the same. You know, you get, you know, an awful lot of guys that are there and they're funding it themselves, and it's not that important if they get sponsorship or not, because, well, it would be, don't get me wrong, if they could get proper sponsorship. But the reality is they're not going to get sponsorship until they get small sponsorship, and the small sponsorship isn't enough to warrant the effort. So they never get onto that path of building it, because they just kind of, again, it's a bit of a defeatist thing. Sure, you know, no one's going to do that because no one knows about it. But, you know, small acorns, you know, but you have to plant the acorn at some point too, you know.
Well, look, I mean, if it raises a bit of awareness here, I mean, I'm all for that too. So, look, guys, I know we went down a little different path, but in fairness, it is relative, because it's looking at F1 and seeing how you can adopt it here.
Well, where's the next drivers coming from? You know, like, you just got to look at, you know, your Alex Duns and what of this world. Like, you know, they don't, and I'm not, and he's completely right. They, you know, they just leave. They don't even race in Ireland. They just literally they do a certain amount of karting, they show, and they're gone. They leave. You know, I'm not saying we need to have a, you know, a British or an Irish F1 championship, but Christ, surely we could come up with something to get them here for a year or maybe two before they run away to where there is a bit of a desire for it. But, you know, it'd be nice to get some sort of homegrown talent here on the way to hopefully bigger things. But at the minute, there's nothing drawing them here, and it's only going the one way, unfortunately, which is the wrong way.
Yeah, well, look, we'll live in hope. We'll see what happens. We'll keep raising awareness of it here in our little pocket. Anyway,
we're doing our bit, as I said.
Yeah, and sure, scatter our legs. And actually, just on that note, before we wrap it up, the figures have been really, really good. A lot of growth from Mr. Conor Moore, as we'd obviously expect, and Peter Collins as well. Both fascinating interviews. If you haven't checked them out, they're obviously there on Spotify and Apple and on YouTube as well. Give us a little follow on that, folks, if you haven't done so already. We have a lot of, as I say, listeners and viewers, but it doesn't always translate into hitting the subscribe or follow button. So look, it takes 2 seconds, and we would appreciate it if you could do that. And we'll give a shout out to PFD Travel and to murraymotorsport.com as well. And obviously you can see a variety of logos along the bottom there. Check out all those great companies as well. Not being biased in any way whatsoever. Richie, Barry, thanks a million for your time. Much appreciated.
Cheers, guys. Take care.